Coming to you from 102.3 KJLH. The front page, your early morning communications drum for all of Southern California, is now wide open. I'm Carl Nelson, and this morning we are blessed to be in the presence of Dr. Minister Ahvay Muhammad, the Western Regional Minister for the Nation of Islam. If you have questions about the Million Man March and other things connected with the nation, now's the time to call 520-KJLH. As of always, the comments expressed on the front page are not necessarily those of our advertisers or the management and staff of KJLH. Before we get to Dr. Ahvay Muhammad, first the headlines on the 25th day of January, 1995.
We'll find to be on the front page once again. It's been a while, and also to be able to speak to our people here in the city of Los Angeles.
Great. A lot of people concerned about the Million Man March. People with different sides on it. They want to know why Minister Farrakhan wants to take a million man to Washington, or what's it going to prove? Is this the real solution to the problems facing us in America today?
Well, as you know, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan represents the mission of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad to give freedom, justice, and equality to all of our people, regardless of religion or political persuasion in America and throughout the world. We believe that the Million Man March is a major thrust towards our unification and towards addressing the major issues now that are increasingly impacting on the black community. We've seen a tremendous political change in the agenda of the government. We've seen major social reforms. We've seen the winds of poverty. We've seen the criminalization of us as a whole people. We've seen the courts and the justice system reversing those so-called advantages that we thought that we had attained in prior years in the 60s. And so we believe it's time now to go to Washington and not to beg the government, but to demand that this government give our people reparations for all of the past injustices, and that we form a coalition across ideologies, across religions, and that coalition, under the leadership of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, representing the interest and the time in terms of what must be done to advance a serious agenda. We're no longer going to give our votes to just anybody. We now have to register our people as independents and make those who claim to represent the interest of our community and those in Washington who would profit from those being with them who represent the interest in our community seriously address us as they, address other communities and constituencies across America. So what we're looking at is calling the government into accountability and taking responsibility now to establish a serious economic initiative, serious political initiatives, and begin to address some of the more recalcitrant problems that now are being crystallized as a result of all this tremendous change, increasing poverty, and increasing want that has swept across our community in the name of political and social reform.
Okay, is the march just limited to quote-unquote black folks,
No,
black men?
We are reaching out to all of our oppressed brothers and sisters, to the Chicano community, to the Native American community, and principally to the black men. We feel that never in our history have we as black men stood up for the needs, the wants, the aspirations, the hurt, the suffering, and the pain that our people have endured in over 400 years of slavery here in the hells of North America. So we believe that we should be foremost and in the forefront of this initiative for change, because we've been foremost and in the forefront of the suffering. The black male has been and continues to be stigmatized. He continues to be degraded. He continues to be criminalized and to be paraded before the governments and the people of the world as a savage. Well, we don't believe that black men are criminals or savages. We don't believe that black men are immoral. We do believe that the government of America, along with those institutions of so-called higher learning, as well as those that represent the bureaucracies, have shaped conditions and environments that have led to the total deformation of our community. And now we're being victimized again, and we're using political ideas now to justify the destruction of the black community, and in particular, the black male.
Women invited?
Well, we're asking our sisters who've carried the load for so many years if they would be so kind as to let the black man at this hour show our love and commitment to our women, to our families, and to our children, and on that day to stay and watch the men who have always been responsible for the advancement of the people initially. And certainly we know our women are with us, and most of the callers and supporters that we have experienced initially in the early phases have been overwhelmingly women who want to see the black man change his condition. How do you think a black woman feels when she can get a job but her man can't? How do you think a black woman feels when she looks to her man to maintain her family, and she has a desire to look up to him, but yet he's not able to be productive? The lack of productivity among us as black men has robbed us of our sense of value and worth, even though we have tremendous value and worth in the sight of God, and certainly we have shown that in our creative capacities and potentials whenever given the opportunity.
You also mentioned registering to vote. Is the nation going to embark upon a voter registration drive?
We certainly are. This is going to be a revolutionary move. This move is for the galvanization, the unification of our people, so that we can address the political, the social, the economic problems, the spiritual and the moral problems that have eroded and deformed our community. We now have to go to the forefront. We're not asking anyone to register as a Republican or as a Democrat. We're not into parties, because no matter what party you're in, if you're not in the party that shares a love and commitment to see the black community not just reformed but transformed, and if you don't want to see black men and women and Chicano men and women and Native American, the oppressed, the unwanted, the locked out, the despised, the rejected, if you don't want to see the bottom rung come to the top, then we don't feel that you should be a part of this. But if you're ready now to see a total change by being involved on the political agenda, the economic agenda, the religious agenda, there's room in this for all men and women who desire to see the total transformation of the black community. So yes, we're going to embark on a tremendous, horrific effort to register every black man, woman, child, Chicano, Native American, to call into accountability for the first time in our history as a people, and in the first time in the unity effort of the oppressed, to register to vote and to make this government, who recognizes the value of political leverage, deal with us if they want to continue to have the privilege of having our vote and saying they represent us, while in truth they have never represented our true needs or aspirations.
So then there's a possibility that you could always go take it a step further and endorse candidates.
Well, certainly we intend to endorse all candidates who endorse our agenda. After the march is over with, we intend to go into every black community and hold town meetings and to put this agenda before our people so that we have an organized, unified thrust. The 1996 election will be the most foretelling election ever in American history. The Republican Party thinks that they, for some reason now, are the only ones that have a mandate for change. Well, I say the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan's rise in America is a bigger statement of a desire and a mandate for change among black people and people throughout the world. He's not just a leader in America. He's a leader wherever he has gone. All of those who have had the privilege of hearing Farrakhan, who's had the privilege of working with him, all of them recognize that he's not an ordinary man and he's not a sellout. So the government recognizes that when the Honorable Louis Farrakhan comes to Washington, we're not coming to sing "We Shall Overcome." We are coming as a sign that we have overcome, and we do intend to come out with a complete agenda, and not only that, come out with a plan and come out with a government that is willing to recognize and deal with us, because we want total and complete freedom, justice, and equality. In fact, we're not going to leave until we get it.
4:46 time. Dr. Ahvay Muhammad, the Western Regional Minister for the Nation of Islam, is our guest this morning on the front page. 520-KJLH is the number to call if you'd like to speak to Dr. Ahvay Muhammad. And I got to ask Dr. Ahvay Muhammad, the recent situation with Qabila Shabazz. Minister Farrakhan said that it was a move to divide the African American community. Is that still the case? Has anything changed with that? Because we keep hearing new revelations about this entire incident.
Well, I think Ray Charles can see what is happening in terms of the consistent pattern that the government has used from the time of Denmark Vesey and Gabriel Prosser and Nat Turner and Marcus Garvey and Malcolm X and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and Dr. King and SCLC and SNCC. I mean, we can just go on and on and on and on. They have more respect for rats and roaches. At least they change the type of poison that they use. Well, they keep using the same old tactics on us, and certainly we have those elements in our community that would like to believe that there is envy and animus and that there is this jealousy among us and within us that would permit us to act like this. But at a certain point, we learn from history. So I think we're older now, we're more mature, but the government is at the root of this. And they have manipulated our sister, and we love her. But she was set up, and everyone knows she was set up and lured into this trap. And there's nothing that they can say or do that would make us see her in any other way except one who the government is trying to victimize again and to pour salt on a wound that was in the process of healing, and then with their own hands try to rupture it again. Well, we're not fools today. And so the black community is angry and incensed that they would try to victimize the family of Malcolm X, the children of Malcolm X, the black community, and especially to rupture what they see as a growing movement. Because if we can never unite then as a people, and if the government can't keep its hands out of our affairs to the point where they seek to kill every one of our leaders and then hide their hands in the name that they discovered a plot. Well, certainly the government didn't discover the plot. The government has always been a part of the plot. So now an atmosphere has been set. The seeds have been planted, and they keep replaying lies. They put words in Betty Shabazz's mouth that she never spoke. And they keep running little common threads across every... See, these APA and UPI systems are nothing but garbage bags where they put their ideas and then they spread them out. And because we don't have the time or the resources or the initiative to look beneath the story, then they have everyone repeating the same lie all across the country. So now the people start hearing the lie over and over and over again. Then they start believing the lie. But today we have to be more critical in our analysis of the news. They say that Malcolm, the minister, was a rival of Malcolm X. Well, he was a protege of Malcolm. He was a student at the time. He was a minister in Boston. Malcolm was the national representative. So they keep suggesting envy and jealousy and competition behind the name rival or the word rival. All of these are slick tricks that they use to divide us, and then certainly putting words in the mouth of Betty Shabazz that she never spoke. But I say to all of my brothers and sisters who are serious and critically minded that today we have to be wiser than our fathers, and we are wiser, but we just have to keep our ears more attuned, because the technology or the techniques of racism are being refined daily, but the objective has always been the same.
All right, it's 10 minutes before 5 o'clock. Dr. Ahvay Muhammad, our guest on the front page this morning, 520 KJLH. You're on the air. What is your name? Where are you calling from?
Oh, good morning, Brother Carl, and I'd like to say peace to you. And assalamu alaikum to my brother, Dr. Ahvay Muhammad.
Wa alaikum salam.
And it's always good to hear from you, brother. Carl, as you know, Dr. Ahvay Muhammad is, by profession, is a clinical psychologist. And, brother, I like to get some free help today by asking you a few questions.
A free question.
A free question. Any rate, brother, there was when the minister was in town, perhaps a month or a month and a half ago, he used a illustration. He gave an analogy about I don't need to lie on you all I need to do is tell the truth about you, and of course that would be sufficient.
Yes.
And in the area of telling the truth, and I describe the white man in my own way because I enjoy denigrating him as he enjoys denigrating, but I think those of us who are wise know what I'm talking about in terms of describing the white man. When we know the truth about someone, as we are learning the truth about the white man, does that make you angry? Or as a black man, like most of us, in a sense, brother, I'm a little angry, even though Allah has blessed me with what is known as material possessions to provide for me and my wife a decent lifestyle. But I'm an angry black man. And do you feel, brother, that as we learn the truth about this white man, we become angry, inner as well as outer, against our oppressor? Am I making sense, brother?
You certainly are. I think anger, when someone has denied you the expression of your manhood. Anger when someone has denied you the potential of your being. Anger when someone has denied you the ability to function within the realm of your capability, to deny you opportunities, to set in place through institutions obstacles to every avenue for your advancement and the advancement of your people. That is righteous anger, righteous indignation. However, how do we utilize that anger? Do we use it destructively or constructively? I say the best way to utilize that anger is to use it to unite with people who share what you share, who feel what you feel, and then to set upon a course whereby through your collective effort, you leverage your anger, your frustration to bring about a change in your life and the lives of others who are adversely affected by the conditions that grieve you and have oppressed you. So it is natural to be angry. But what is unnatural is when we permit the oppressor and that one who has put us in this condition then to take advantage of our anger by manipulating us in our anger to become enemies against one another, to become drug abusers, to become alcoholics, to become those who become hopeless, rather than taking this apparent hour of darkness and despair and searching for the light of opportunity and unity whereby we can collectively and constructively address the problems that plague us as black men and black people. So you're justified. I'm angry too, but I don't use that in a destructive way. There was a time in my life, as in most black men's life. Black men, for example, on USA Today, they had white men are angry. Well, hell, who's more angry than the black man? I mean, it says of us in the scripture that when we come back, the Ancient of Days is coming back, and he's sitting on a throne, that he had eyes like burning coals. Well, that represents the anger of a man who was oppressed. But he's got hair like lamb's wool. Well, he's the Ancient of Days. We ruled yesterday. We're going to come back into power and rule again. But by nature, we're not a vengeful people. We're a loving and caring people. In fact, the only people that we have shown a consistent tendency to hate is ourselves. And that's the message of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and the message of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is to teach us the truth of who we are, so that we can fall in love with who we are. Then the Caucasian won't be a problem to us. But he's a problem for us as long as we don't know who we are. So we can't blame him today. He's done his job. He's shown us that he is not interested in freedom, justice, and equality. And so if we're going to change that circumstance, we have to change that ourselves. And our sisters have to help us. And the way our sisters can help us is by making sure on that day when we go to the march on Washington that they're in full support of us, and that all the work activity that day stops, all the basketball playing stops, all the going to the grocery store. Make America on that day remember her sins, and let the black woman on that day encourage her man to go for freedom as we were encouraged to live in slavery, because at that time we had to learn to accept slavery to survive. Well, we can't go back there. We can no longer continue to live as slaves. So now our women have to encourage the man today to go for the freedom and the rise of our people, because today that's the only way we're going to be able to live, because the government is saying now we're tired of carrying the black people of America. Welfare is over, building more prisons, and the plan does not include helping the black people of America change our condition, reparations, considerations, and even apologies to others. But no one yet has even given our people an apology after 400 years. So I believe, Brother Mill, you have every right to be angry, and I think you would be a fool not to be.
All right, 3 minutes before 5 o'clock, 520-KJLH, the number to call, speak to Dr. Ahvay Muhammad. Good morning, you're on the front page. What is your name, where are you calling from?
Hi, my name is Jay Tipton. I'm a new listener, and I was just calling to give a little information as far as getting people to work.
Yes.
My brother is Charles, by the way. I think you guys know him. He hit me onto the station, and I've been listening for now about a week. I'm a carpenter, and I went through this program called the Century Freeway Pre-Apprenticeship Program. Have you guys heard of that?
Right. So make it quick, because we have a guest here, and it's sort of disrespectful if you don't refer to a question or refer to something that he's talking about. But I'm glad that you have jobs for our people. So if you want to make that announcement about the jobs, please make it quickly.
Okay, good deal. It's a pre-apprenticeship program into construction. You can go into any trade from there, such as carpentry, plumbing, or iron workers, anything like that. The address is 5021 Lenox Boulevard. The phone number is 310-673-3941. The minimum requirements is a driver's license, and you pass a math test. If you don't pass the math test, they offer a school there that's free, and you go back and you study and you pass the math test. And then you get in the union and you go to work. I went from an hour at the first period, $6 an hour in less than 8 months. Now I'm at 6-period apprentice, and that's $18 an hour. And for any young black man or woman, it's a good trade to get into in order to make some money. And your education has nothing to do with it. You just have to be able to pick up.
All right, Jay, thanks for that call. And we have the phone number here. Call us after 9 o'clock if you're interested in those jobs that Jay mentioned. This is the Rhythm of Southern California, KJLH, Compton, Los Angeles, 5 o'clock straight up. Our guest this morning on the front page, Dr. Minister Ahvay Muhammad from the Nation of Islam. You have calls concerning the Million Man March or anything to do with the Nation of Islam. Now is the time to call 520-KJLH. Good morning. You're on the front page. What is your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, this is Troy from Inglewood.
Hi, Troy.
I wanted to know, what is the date of the march?
We are planning the march, Sister Troy, for the fall. And we're intending to give more detailed information. I have an idea of the month, but at this point, I'm not going to show my card until we have met and finalized the specifics on it. And then I'll be happy to come back and inform all of Los Angeles. We will have centers set up throughout Southern California in the state and in every region. And we have already people that are in the wings who are willing and able and ready to assist. So all of this information will be released, and of course there will be a special edition of the Final Call newspaper that will be dedicated to informing all of our community. So I would say stay tuned. That information is soon to be at hand.
All right, Troy, thanks for your call. 520-KJLH. Good morning. You're on the front page. What is your name? Where are you calling from?
Good morning, Carl, and good morning, Brother Ahvay. This is Cliff from South Central. To the last caller and to Brother Ahvay, much of the information, Carl, as I mentioned last Friday, was published in the December 28th issue of the Final Call. As a matter of fact, the screaming headlines on the front of that Final Call issue says, African American summit leaders unveil Black Action Agenda. You correct me if I'm wrong, Brother Ahvay, but the Million Man March, as I see it, is the showpiece of the Black Action Agenda for 1995, which began in December by reclaiming Kwanzaa and its connection with the Black liberation. There are a lot of other points on there as well, Carl. I took what I did. I took that issue of the final call and transcribed it, and it took me 4 pages to get all of the information from the final call, organized in a way that I could digest it, showing the different points in the Black Action Agenda. Just to mention a couple of the points, there's a continued development of independent black institutions going to be performed. The call for black men to repentance is part of that agenda. Striving for organizational and operational unity nationwide. A call for 1 million Republicans and Democrats to register as independent voters. And on that issue, Brother Ahvay, I would really suggest that you rethink the wisdom of asking us to register as independent, because what happens when you register independent, you don't get to participate in the primary election process, and you don't get all of that information and propaganda that comes out from the different parties. As a point of that, I'm registered as Republican. My wife registers as Democrat. We get all the information, and I just got a card yesterday from Stan Sanders. He's going to be running for the council for a position, I think, in the district where I am. So I wouldn't have gotten that if I was registered Democrat. See, so I understand your point, and I'll say to all of the politicians out there, I am an independent voter, period. And I believe in throwing the rascals out when they don't meet our needs, and that's another point, Carl, of the agenda. So a lot of information is out there, so I'll say this in 2 points in closing. I had asked last Friday for someone to call me and let me know if there was more information about the Black Action Agenda, because I hadn't seen it adequately or sufficiently reported in any other media, radio, television, or print media other than the final call. And I deplore that, because we see all of this stuff on OJ almost 24 hours, and there's value in the reporting of the OJ situation, but there's much more of a need to report the Black Action Agenda and the Million Man March that's forthcoming. Close to, Carl, and let me get myself out of some hot water. I mentioned last Friday that because of the extension, I was able to get in, and some people thought I had a private number that I could call and get in on front page, and I was referring simply to the 30-minute extension of time that allowed me 30 extra minutes to get in. Thanks a lot.
Right, and thanks for clearing that up, because they blame me for that too. But the Black Action Agenda, what is it? Cliff was right. It didn't get any coverage in the mainstream media. Except your paper was the front page headlines.
Well, I think that this goes without saying about the conspiracy to keep knowledge and information from our community, to constantly portray only those acts of violence, only those things that promote a negative and destructive view of who we are. It certainly then has a tremendous impact on shaping the psyches and the political agendas of the country. We can't say that if the Times and other so-called forms of media are objective, that they could overlook all other activity in the black community and report only crimes. They don't do this where the white community is concerned. So it shows a very clear and ever-present agenda. It has been covered in part in some of the black press across the country, but the Final Call newspaper is dedicated not only to information, but to the liberation and to the salvation of the black community, and to provide us with a critical analysis of news and information that is on the cutting edge of the rise of our community. So the Black Action Agenda, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has been one of the principal participants and in the call. In fact, the last African American Summit was held in Chicago and hosted by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam. The call for the 1 Million Man March, though, started, in all due respect, and was the initial idea of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad back in the 1960s, when he observed that the March on Washington, he told the Honorable Louis Farrakhan at that time, he said, "Brother, we will go to Washington one day, but when we go, it will be for full and complete freedom, justice, and equality, and for the rise of the black people of America. And when we leave, we will leave with freedom, justice, and equality. So at that time, in 1965, was the genesis of this idea. And beyond that, the Honorable Louis Farrakhan has now concretized that. Certainly, the Black Action Agenda has embraced it because we see a rise in nationalistic thinking among our community, and we see a rise in our people coming together and a desire for unity because of circumstances. So I would agree with you, my brother. No one else is covering anything that's positive. Everyone likes to cover what's negative. I think that speaks for itself, but the Nation of Islam and Minister Louis Farrakhan are not interested in what others are saying. We're too busy trying to do what we know would please God and change the condition of our people.
Minister Farrakhan has been criticized in some circles of the community for, I would say, making overtures to the civil rights movement. Some people in the civil rights, the Black Caucus for one, the NAACP, and some people feel that he should not have tried to even being involved in, especially in the march that they had. Another school of thought is the problem with the housing projects. Last Friday on Capitol Hill, people were saying the Nation of Islam is a racist group because they don't allow whites to be part of that security detail, and they were referring to the situation in Chicago. How do you feel about all these things?
Well, I find it interesting. You know, here, black people have been locked out of everything, and the moment we begin to make progress in addressing the needs of our people, the moment we try to unite and heal our wounds as a family, they want to tell us who we should talk to and who should be in our family. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is a man with tremendous love and compassion for all of our people. We don't have to share beliefs on every area in order to get along as a family. Family members in their own house don't agree on everything, but that doesn't mean they don't love each other, they don't care about each other. We've permitted foolish ideas to divide us, and oftentimes they're not even our ideas. We don't even have the courage to look beneath and discover the root of the idea that we permitted to divide us. Well, I think the common denominators that affect us are more important than the apparent differences that divide us. So we're not looking at reasons to justify our disunity when God is calling us now to unite. What could we say to our children that would justify our disunity and permit them to stay in the conditions that this government has orchestrated? White people disagree on things, but they are united in keeping us in a despicable, deplorable condition so bad that their scholars now call us a permanent underclass. Well, Farrakhan is disliked because he does not permit others to dictate to him how he should address the issues and problems of our people. We're not blinded by other people's aspirations. We're committed to the total liberation, to the salvation of our people, and to show through our love that if we would just learn to respect one another, we would get a lot further in our relationships and have fewer problems, and then we would be able to address the real problem. But as long as we're divided over silly stuff, we can never face the real problems that affect us and our people.
All right, it's 10 minutes after 5 o'clock. Our guest this morning on the front page is Minister Ahvay Muhammad, Minister Farrakhan's official representative here on the West Coast. 520-KJLH is the number to call to speak to him. We'll take your calls right after this. What is your name? Where are you calling from?
Good morning, Carl. This is Mary from Paramount.
Hi, Mary.
Good morning, Minister.
Good morning, my sister.
Minister Ahvay.
Early, I'm sorry. I'm calling to ask two questions. One is I have the paper that Cliff referred to earlier, but there was stated that there was going to be a number in Washington where we could contact, or where people could contact to find out about assisting or participating in the Million Man March. My second question is, I'm Christian. Do you find a cross-section of different churches, or people who are, more or less not into a church, that are participating, who are interested in the program?
Yes, my sister. We have a cross-section. We've crossed all religious lines. We consider ourselves to be Christians, too, in that we follow the example of Jesus. And certainly we are friends with numerous church communities across America and with just about every denomination. So it's not exclusionary. We're looking at the issues that impact on all of our people. The number will be forthcoming. As you know, the African American Summit, we are newly organizing. But at the same time, we are preparing to advance this agenda. And while we have been organizing, information has not always been as forthcoming. However, I do have the number in Washington that you can call the mosque in Washington and get more information so that when that number becomes available, they can refer you to that number in Washington. But the number for the mosque in Washington is 202 area code 399-1010. That's Muhammad Mosque number 4 in Washington, D.C. They'll play a pivotal role in directing information, but the actual number in terms of organizing and participating in the march will be forthcoming, and more details on every aspect of the march will soon be available to all of our people. I would say make sure you don't miss a single issue of the Final Call newspaper, because we're really the only publication that is really keeping our people abreast of what's happening with the African American Leadership Summit, what's happening with the Black Action Agenda, and what's happening with the Million Man March, and also what's happening with the Nation of Islam in our efforts to show through our example what we can do with people who love each other and are willing to pool their resources and invest in our moral and our economic redevelopment. And what we're trying to do is show through our example that regardless of what religion you may have, if we would use these methods and have this as our goal, we can, through our unity, solve our problems as a people without begging anybody for anything.
It's starting to rain here out in front of our studio, so those of you who are going to work, please be advised you may want to leave a little early, because we know how the streets get in L.A. when it starts to rain. Dr. Ahvay, has the nation received support from mainstream organizations? Have everybody said, hey, let's go for it on the march I'm referring to specifically?
Oh, definitely. We have a number of organizations in the Los Angeles community. The march is for all Black and oppressed people. That's first and foremost. If you're oppressed, and you know who the oppressed people are, we've all been identified by, in some way, by our pigmentation, by the fact that we have Native American blood in us, and that we have Black blood in us, and that we maybe speak a different language, or we come from one of the quote-unquote countries in the diaspora that is predominantly Black. So as an oppressed people, we have galvanized, and the response has been tremendous from political leaders, some who may not want their names to be known, to grassroots community groups, to our brothers and sisters on the street who appear as if they have no hope. But yet this is becoming an increasing hope for the oppressed brothers and sisters who want to see a change. And they recognize that Minister Farrakhan is a man that won't sell our people out. He's never done it. And so everyone knows that when we go to Washington, we're going with a serious plan to change our condition.
All right, it's 18 minutes after 5 o'clock, 520 KJLH. Good morning, you're on the front page. What is your name? Where you
and it's
from?
Big Money Griff out of Inglewood, the problem solver. Good morning, KJLH listeners and Brother Ahvay. And I have several comments I want to make. And I really think that this is an excellent time for me to say that I applaud the nation for accepting this new agenda of voting. This is something that I have been advocating for almost a year and a half now, since I've been calling Front Page with the announcer there, Carl Nelson, who has led me to believe that there has been some badgering by me in that light. But I'm just happy to see, Brother Ahvay, that you have adopted this, and we hope that the Jehovah Witnesses can also do this. One of the things that I would love to see also when we march to Washington, to Washington,
employment rates and astronomical what they call rates of discouraged workers, which means workers who have given up on looking for work, so they can't even call them unemployed, so they're not factored into the unemployment rate. These are the brothers who stand on corners. These are the sisters now who chase crack and who find themselves living outside of the realm of hope. So therefore, they're not even factored in by the social scientists when they talk about unemployment or underemployment. Some of them don't even seek welfare today. They have become so discouraged with being manipulated by the Caucasian and those who have been our skillful oppressors for years. So therefore, brother, when we get into this denial and we take the exception for the rule, then that shows that we are willing to do anything to keep us from facing the obvious conditions that confront us. You know, a person's considered psychotic when they're disoriented in three categories. They are disoriented as to their person, meaning they don't know who they are. I'm not black. I'm this. I'm that. I'm mulatto. Well, you tell that to the oppressor when you show up. Because you spoke a certain way on the telephone, that might get you some points on the phone, but when you show up, you got another reality to deal with. Then, if the person is not only disoriented to person, but to the place, they forget that they're living in America, the seat of racism, a country established on the backs, the sweat, the hard work, the sacrifice, the giving up of the lives of millions and millions of black men and women that helped establish this government but haven't received a dime. So when you fail to recognize where you are, you're also disoriented. But then also to the time that we can no longer live in the past and have success. So the time for begging, the time for welfare, the time for government handouts, we're not asking for a handout now. We're saying that all we need is the initial seed money, and for the government not to hinder us. The government's going out of its way now to try to stop the Nation of Islam in our efforts to purchase farmland. We've just bought thousands of acres of farmland, but the government tries to interfere. We have established now our national center, but we had interference. When the Honorable Louis Farrakhan goes to speak at major venues, there's always some issue here to try to stop him, to try to block him, to try to keep the people from hearing Farrakhan, because they know that Farrakhan is going to continue to speak to the people. The March on Washington is in the scripture, you know, and we certainly see it in a perspective that is analogous to the Sermon on the Mount, because it doesn't look as if anybody has enough fish and bread to feed the masses of black people. But the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the plan that he laid, that was given to him by God, to advocate and to establish us as a people where we are doing for self and not begging or looking to others to do for us, is the solution to our problems. And the bread is the word and the teaching that is not based on necessarily religion as we understand religion, but as a way of life. That if we would embrace this, all other people unite. All other people feed themselves, produce food for themselves. All other people police themselves. So if we would unite and eat this word, this bread, which is life, which is in the example of Christ, and we would also take this symbolic fish. And this fish is symbolic, in my judgment, of a new life that God is offering us. If we would have the courage then to eat the bread of life, then we would be taken into a new way of life, and that new way of life will increase love in our families and would increase the love of one another and would bring us tremendous riches, respect of self, and the respect of the world. The whole world is going to be watching this Sermon on the Mount when the Honorable Louis Farrakhan is at the head of this march, which you and I know is not going to be a million-man march. We're already hearing now from various segments of our community and getting commitments for 2 million men. So I think the thing with Kabila and the thing that every opportunity will be used to try to derail the march. And I think our people should be sensitive to that. And I think that no matter what they try to do, that this is the time, and no effort against God, no weapons formed against the righteous will prevail.
All right, 532. I got to ask you about Khalid Muhammad. There's been sort of attempts to drive a wedge between Brother Khalid and the Minister Farrakhan. What is the status on Khalid Muhammad? Is he still a member of the Nation of Islam?
Well, certainly. Brother Khalid is a beloved brother of our nation. He's like one of the founding fathers, a soldier that stood by the side of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. We're not throwing anybody away back to this enemy that has destroyed our people. Everybody tries to find the least little problem that might occur and magnify it. Certainly, he's the leader, the Honorable Louis Farrakhan is the leader of our nation. And if he chooses the least little problem that might occur and magnify it. Certainly, he's the leader, the Honorable Louis Farrakhan is the leader of our nation. And if he chooses to admonish one of his helpers, then we have every right to do that. But for others to try to say then that there's a problem, there's really no problem at all. It is really what is represented here is an opportunity for us to become more perfect in our ability to serve the leader of our nation and to serve our people. Brother Minister, Brother Khalid, who was disciplined by the removal of his title, is still a member of the Nation of Islam, highly esteemed and loved by the followers of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam. And we are going to continue in that relationship. And we know that Brother Khalid will be back at his teacher's side, much to the chagrin and to the hatred of our enemies, and both those that are open enemies, and certainly we have hidden ones in the black community who want to see division in the Nation of Islam. But I say that those days are over. In a few days, I believe that God will show you that Brother Khalid was in truth made for this hour to stand at the side of his teacher, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan.
All right, 20 minutes before 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock, Cliff Winston. Cliff's going to give away tickets. Front page, Western Regional Minister for the Nation of Islam, Dr. Minister Ahvay Muhammad, a rising star in the Nation of Islam at that. 520 KJLH is the number to speak to him. Good morning, you're on the air. What is your name and where are you calling from?
Hi, good morning to Carl and your guest. This is Vincent. I wanted to bring up my opinions on this Million Man March. I personally don't agree that this is the correct way to go, because I think you said it all when you were talking, when you said that Genesis for this march was conceived back, if I heard you correctly, was said back in the 30s when it was decided that, or it was envisioned that perhaps a march like this would be some way to go. I believe that there are more effective ways for us to use our resources that are possibly put together such that the opposing force, Caucasians, whoever, would not be set up for it. It is my belief that the people that are against us probably have in place methods that would be able to derail this, in simple and effective ways. I mean, even as you say now, they're already working against us. If I could, at this point, I've thought of this, and there's other people who are thinking of this, and I would like to maybe propose a couple of things. One, if possible, could there be debate on this among other black people, outside the leadership of the Nation of Islam, to maybe look at other solutions that we might be able to use. I don't know if it's too late. Maybe the march is, the method for the march or the preparations for the march is in place. But one idea that had been proposed to me or someone had thought of is that perhaps the situation that black people find themselves in right now is a matter of image, because we have the brain power and the talent and enough solid black people in all walks and fields of life to do just about anything that we wish to do. But what we lack is a unified image to the world, and we believe, in other words, the hype that is being perpetrated upon us by the opposing force, that we're nothing, that the bell-shaped curve, that you're stupid, dumb, etc., etc. One idea that was brought out was to treat black people as a product, the same way that when Tylenol was considered to be, it was poisoned and they were going to lose market share, or Jack in the Box was going to lose market share, they immediately went and initiated certain steps in the media or in the world's eye to build up their reputation. Now, you see in Kobe here with the earthquake how the Japanese reputation has been damaged in terms of their efficiency and the different ideas that we had about Japan being invincible. Now, their response has been slow. Well, on the other hand, in terms of looking at black people, we have suffered from this idea that we are the low of the low, that we are not cutting edge, etc., etc. My idea would be, or the idea that was told to me might be, to go ahead and actually engage a advertising agency, a large-size advertising agency, and actually advertise across all media, billboards, television, radio, magazine, print, etc., that black people are in other words, we are the best thing. We are we're the new thing. Our ideas are now the ideas. Like, for example, CP time and all that, the way we've been. Change that around to where it actually now becomes the standard and actually broadcast this to the world. That may be something that could be done. I don't know if you want to do it in conjunction with the Million Man March or how you might want to do it. But I do believe that we may need to actually have some type of modification or surgery done on our image, and we maybe need to address that and actually change the thought and image that is seen throughout the world and conversely accepted by us.
All right, Vincent. Thanks for your comment, Minister Ahvay.
Well, Brother Vincent, I appreciate your comment. Certainly, we can change our image, but I don't think necessarily that we need a public relations campaign so much to do it, as we need to make a very clear statement. And what greater statement could be made to the investors who are going to be looking at the march on Washington, D.C., if America is a safe place to continue to invest their money? If America does not want to see black people embark upon a proactive agenda in which they themselves have an intrinsic motivation, not extrinsic, to transform our lives and our communities so that we can come out of a state of squalor and poverty as a people. I'm not saying we don't have some people who have attained certain levels of economic comfort, but remember who they're tied to. So it's a temporary, as Dr. Karinga says, it's a connection, a cash connection to the oppressor. Well, you and I know that when it comes time to downsize, we're definitely going to be the first to go. So therefore, we have to develop an economic base for ourselves. We have to develop factories. We have to go to Africa, and through our relationships in Africa, have large tracts of land and demand that this government permit us to have a dual citizenship, as they have permitted the Jews to have dual citizenship with Israel and America, and that the same government that benefited from our enslavement for 310 years where we didn't get a dime, that government pay reparations to us, and that those reparations be used to address the basic needs and the maintenance of those basic needs to ensure that future generations of our people will not suffer for the lack of food, clothing, and shelter, because we will institutionalize the maintenance of this among ourselves. So I would say, my brother, that more than putting it on the billboards of the cities and on the airwaves, let it be in our resolve. Let it be in our example. Let it be demonstrated by the actions and the activity of us as a people, because that will ignite all of us. And certainly the investors are not going to invest in a government, foreign investors and those in America that they see is unwilling to transform the inner cities, because the government of America cannot afford, if they disrupt the march too much in their efforts, they themselves will be the catalyst for uniting all of our people.
All right, 13 minutes before 6 o'clock, Dr. Ahvay Muhammad, our guest on the front page this morning. 520 KJLH, 9 minutes before 6. Dr. Ahvay, you mentioned off mic that the march is going to start here in L.A. or on the West Coast?
Well, certainly we are the organizational headquarters here, the Western Regional Headquarters for the Nation of Islam, will be the focal point at facilitating other efforts in the community in a mass way to get our people from the West Coast to the East Coast. We already know that we have 1 million men coming out of the megalopolis area that run from Atlanta all the way up to New York City. We had over 40,000 men show up in Houston, Texas alone when the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan spoke. We had over 10,000 show up with a 2-day notice in 15,000 in New York City. And we've had to, with just a very short notice, unprecedented numbers of men that would show up. We already know that we have commitments from major organizations to deliver unprecedented numbers of black men. So now the number has changed from 1 million to 2 million. That's just the East Coast. So we believe that we'll bring 1 million out of the West Coast. Now that doesn't include who's coming up out of the South. So we believe that that day we will make a very profound statement to the government of America and to the world, but we will come back even more organized with a more determined and clear agenda. Now, the Honorable Louis Farrakhan, like Aaron, and his teacher, like Moses, are making a very clear statement to the government. It's time to let our people go so that we can establish freedom, justice, and equality, and not to hinder us or plan against us. Because, it was written in the scripture that in this case, where you see a people trying to go forward in the way of God, and if you see a people, or in this case, men, it said to let them alone in the book of Paul. For if the plan of action should be of men, it would be overthrown. But if it is of God, you will not be able to overthrow them, or else you may find yourself fighting against God. The Honorable Louis Farrakhan is not an ordinary man, and we're not an ordinary people. We believe, my brothers and sisters, that we will fulfill what is written in the scriptures as being the stone that the builders rejected, a people who were robbed of their names, their history, their culture, their language, their God, the despised of this world, but the chosen and the beloved of God. Our mission is to fulfill that which God has promised us, and we believe that God will be with us every step of the way getting there, and every step of the way when we leave there, we will come out with great substance.
All right, 6 minutes before 6 o'clock, Cliff Winston, 520 KJLH, and I'm going to get you on the front page this morning. Good morning, you're on the air. What is your name, and where are you calling from?
How you doing this morning, Carl? It's Charlie Blue from L.A.
Hi, Charlie.
And how you doing this morning, sir, Minister?
Fine, my brother. How are you?
Thank you. I just wanted to say that that's fine. I'm glad we're having the march, but L.A. Unemployment Council is having a march this morning, Wednesday the 25th, for the L.A. City School Districts for jobs. They got so many jobs, millions and millions of dollars. So This is from the LA Unemployment Council, Deacon. And he also would like to thank you, Carl, because he received some positive calls. He received 50 or 60 calls from the last shutdown we had over on Magic Johnson's theaters, because we're about getting jobs in this community. And also, you're having the march, and that's good. So some people want to march, don't want to have to go all the way to Washington, because we're having problems right here in L.A. now about jobs. And people who have kids and children, they ought to come, because the family might have a husband who is unemployed, and their kids go to these city schools, and they're not giving no blacks no jobs.
All right, Charlie, give us the details of the march this morning quickly.
Excuse me?
Give us the details of today's march.
It's at the L.A. School District, and its address is 1425 San Pedro Street on the 4th floor. And we're having it at 8 o'clock. I know it's raining, but I mean, what if it's raining when we go to Washington, D.C.? Does that mean people aren't going to get up and go? I mean, I know it's a short notice. I'm sorry. I wish I could have been saying it earlier in the week. But, again, I'm going to give you the address, 1425 South San Pedro. And it's on the 4th floor at 8 o'clock in the morning. They're going to be responding to the demand that the L.A. Unemployment Council has made about giving some blacks and more, positions for the L.A. city schools.
We get the idea, Charlie. Thanks for that comment. You mentioned it's raining and people might. How would that affect you? You think the weather?
No, the weather on that day, God will make it fitting for all of us, I'm certain. And even if it were to rain, the rain that would come down would not be strong enough to stop the determined will of our people to establish freedom, justice, and equality for ourselves. I was mentioning some of the venues where the Honorable Louis Farrakhan has spoken and the response of our people. But in truth, there has not been a single venue large enough. We've always turned away thousands of people because we just can't seem to find a place big enough. And we think that this march will be an example of the millions and millions of people that God has touched their hearts and inspired them to hear and see the value of the message that he's placed in the heart and in the mouth and in the mind of his servant, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. So I invite you all, stay tuned, call the mosque here in the Los Angeles area, 310-671-9950. Stop by, visit us. We're at 333 Centinela Avenue here in the city of Inglewood. We also have there the University of Islam, where we offer education to our children. You don't have to be a Muslim to put your children in our school. However, you have to be willing to permit us to teach them the knowledge of self, the knowledge of God. We love all of our people, but the best way to show our love is through our determination to bring about a better reality under which we all can live in peace.
Okay, can you give us that phone number again for people who want more information about the march?
You can call us at 310-671-9950, or you can stop by Muhammad Mosque, number 27 at 333 Centinela Avenue. We have a bookstore there, and we will have an information center there, which will be established to give out information on how to organize and be prepared for the march. And that information will be made available to all those who seek it.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Ahvay Muhammad, Minister Farrakhan's regional representative, Western regional representative here in L.A. I want to remind you also that the comments expressed on the front page are not necessarily those of our advertisers or the management and staff of KJLH. 6 o'clock straight up, KJLH Compton, Los Angeles. Cliff's up next. We'll see you tomorrow. Before we leave you one of Kamel's collection of little quotes. A stumble may prevent a fall. We'll see you tomorrow, 4:30.